this provincial government really seems to be sticking to their guns. Even some of the more sort of laid back collaborative politicians are starting to get a little bit spicy. We've got a clip about that in just 1 second. But first off, let's just show this tweet of Danielle Smith here saying the federal government's new regulations on electricity will increase your utility bills and basically every other good and service. The proposed mandate is unconstitutional. We will not let Albertans suffer by implementing this policy. Now, Alexi, I wanted to pick your brain on this because Quebec has a great tradition of telling the federal government to go fly a kite. What's it like seeing another province doing it now so firmly and repeatedly?
I would say that for Quebec, it's completely the opposite. And I'm really sad because for a while, Quebec was always like, oh, we are doing our own thing. We don't
Mhm.
care about what you are proposing to us. We always wanted to do everything differently. But it seems
Right.
that in Quebec right now, we are following everything that they ask for us. So,
Mhm.
and it's mostly why Quebec have banned the extraction of our natural resources because they want to reduce the gas and also like they want to reach net zero, but in the same
Mm.
time that will that would be so bad for us. First of all, for our wealthy, like
Yeah.
we are actually stopping for making money. And also, this will have been like pretty good for other country or other province to get our natural resources. We know that we have like natural gas in Quebec, and we have a lot of this, but they stop everybody who try to extract it. And it would be the same for like so many other things. Now they are focusing on wind energy or electricity energy, but we'll get to it afterwards. But now they are talking about nuclear energy.
Well, and I find that so fascinating. It's like almost like all the people who moved from Quebec to Alberta for energy jobs brought some of that spirit of freedom with them, and now it's alive and well here. Yeah, for a long time, we even saw throughout COVID, Jason Kenney. It's a very similar situation, and we're going to play a clip here in a moment. But Jason Kenney effectively said, "We're not doing any of these restrictions," and then the government said, "Oh well, we're actually not going to allow you to access billions of dollars." In sort of benefits and innovative things, if you don't agree to bringing in some version of this, and then Jason Kenney folded. Now, the federal government seems to be doing something similar here, where they're saying, if you're not willing to agree to 2035, listen, Danielle Smith has agreed to a 2050 deadline and says that that's practical and something we can do. I honestly think Alberta's, not that I care particularly, but I think Alberta's going to be net zero before anywhere else because I just think we do things better and we tend to
Mm-hmm.
succeed at them, even if they're things I don't really care about. But listen, like they're not playing ball at all. They came to the table and said, no, well, we don't think we can do this. We're going to do this, and they're like, okay, you don't get access to any of this. The other thing too is the billions of dollars in sort of energy investments that the government's made available. If you agree to this 2035 stuff, that stuff matters and it can help, but it doesn't offset the, I think it's estimated $1.7 trillion dollars that are in place, that come from these other industries that would be attacked. So it's kind of like catch 22. You're losing either way. But this government is not engaging in good faith negotiations. They probably know they're on their last leg, and that's why they're going after people. But a local Calgary MP, she addresses very sort of competently and thoroughly. So I think we can jump to that clip now, also shared by Danielle Smith. But this is of the always friendly Rebecca Schultz, maybe not being quite so friendly with the federal government.
Earlier today, the federal government released the draft clean electricity regulations. We will be doing detailed analysis in the months ahead. However, one thing is clear. The draft regulations are unconstitutional, irresponsible, unrealistic, and would make life less affordable for Albertans and Canadians. They will not be implemented in our province, period. They can't. We are beginning our talks with the federal government, and if we can't get alignment, Alberta will chart its own path to ensure we have reliable and affordable electricity for the people we serve. This means making sure we have adequate natural gas baseload and incentivizing CCUS-abated natural gas generation, small modular reactors, hydrogen, and a sustainable amount of wind, solar, and other renewables to drive down electricity costs. We need to be realistic. The world is going to need a lot more electricity, Estimates indicate the power demand could double between now and 2050, and Canada's generation capacity will need to be up to 3 times larger than it is right now. Instead, we've seen the federal government put ideology before common sense, affordability, and reliability once again. What was released today is a bait and switch, pretending to allow natural gas to continue while creating conditions where plants are forced to power down. In the dead of winter or the middle of summer, Albertans need natural gas to keep our grid running, keep families from freezing, to turn the lights on, to run air conditioning and businesses operating. Can you imagine being a parent of young children, having to ration power and not being able to turn on your light switches in the middle of the night in the middle of winter? We can achieve our environmental goals in a much more realistic way that doesn't jeopardize jobs, our economy, or put Albertans at risk.
Yeah, it's
She's
it's
totally
wild.
right.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, and it's so like there's nothing there you can really disagree with.
Mhm.
Especially, you know what, we're living in a time where the only thing a government should be talking about is making things more affordable. This government has made life virtually unaffordable, and for everyone, like well-to-do people are struggling. And but by well-to-do, I mean people who are making an amount that, say, 10 years ago you would have been very comfortably paying a mortgage and maybe going on a trip once a year abroad. That same amount of money in just 8 years of Trudeau means you're barely getting by. It's extremely troubling. And for this government now to not only be doing things that are going to make things more expensive, but also bringing things to the point the technology is not ready. We not only will not be able to afford energy, but those folks who can afford energy, because of technological limitations and these new restrictions and this ideological push for 2035, there may not be power to turn on even if you can pay for it. It is absolutely unsettling that this is the focus of this government, and I'm so happy that we at least here have a provincial government that is pushing back. But who knows? Like this federal government, they're so ideologically married to this. I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know how much they're gonna let this slide. I am gonna read through this one more post from Premier Danielle Smith on the matter. And we'll move on to some Quebec news as well. But I think getting through this similar sentiment, but they're putting this out on all accounts and making clear to this government that this is not going to fly. So Danielle Smith says the draft federal 2035 net zero power grid regulations are unconstitutional, irresponsible, and do not align with Alberta's emissions reduction and energy development plan that works towards carbon neutral power grid by 2050. These regulations make desperately needed investments in the new natural gas generation almost impossible. If implemented in Alberta, these regulations would endanger the reliability of Alberta's power grid and cause massive increases in Alberta's power bills. Alberta's government will protect Albertans from these unconstitutional federal net zero regulations. They will not be implemented in our province, period. Good to hear that again. One of the only positives at this point is that these are draft regulations, and Alberta is about to commence working group with the federal government to discuss how to bring Ottawa's efforts to decarbonize the economy in line with Alberta's emissions reductions and energy development plans. I love that. Just the confidence to say we'll bring them in line with some more realistic standards. It's great. If this alignment is not achieved, Alberta will chart its own path to ensuring we have additional reliable and affordable electricity brought onto our power grid that is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This will be accomplished by ensuring an appropriate amount of high-efficiency natural gas baseload is added to the grid while incentivizing carbon capture, utilizing and storage, CUS-abated natural gas generation, small modular reactors, hydrogen generation, and sustainable amount of wind, solar, and other renewables to drive down electricity costs. Albertans and our government care deeply about responsible environmental stewardship. We are confident in Alberta's plan to get us to a reliable and affordable carbon neutral power grid by 2050. This is the direction Alberta is going. We invite the federal government to support us rather than hinder us in doing so. I love that. Just the confidence of we're going to set the grid straight. And you know the thing that drives me wild is and I don't know what your reaction is on this, Alexa, but the recent very sensible moves to pause solar and wind projects until there's a plan in place. For folks who don't understand, this government doesn't want to do this, and they understand that some jobs might be affected by this, but there's a whole bunch of controversies among the very progressives who are upset about this pause. They don't want the federal government involved in the costs to clean up and sort of restore the areas affected far less, I'd say, but affected by drilling and oil and things like that. So the government says, well, hold on a second, we don't have a plan to restore the places that we're tearing up right now and covering with solar farms or the wind turbine. So we need to have a plan for this. Furthermore, the electricity coming from those things, they can be produced in mass volumes, but then if it's not windy and it's not sunny, they can barely contribute anything. It's very much in flux. So you don't have a reliable energy source, particularly in troubling seasons. If it's winter and there's no wind and it's very cloudy, you're not getting power from that. And there are 4 provinces within this country that still get 30 to 85% of their power from coal. So if you stop all of that and then you're switching to something that can be going at 100% efficiency or 1% efficiency, that's when you get rolling brownouts. That's when you can't plug in your Tesla to charge it, like in California. It's absolutely destructive, and it simply doesn't work in Alberta. What's sort of been your reaction when you first heard, oh, they're stopping a bunch of projects and pausing a bunch of projects? What was your reaction, Alexa?
But first of all, why posing something now when we know that we will face a lack of energy soon? So you don't pause, you just like reflect on, okay, what can be add to it to produce more energy?